Alina Habba sends a letter into Judge Kaplan asking about Kaplan and Kaplan. We know that Judge Kaplan was presiding over the E. Jean Carroll trial. Roberta Kaplan was the plaintiff's attorney representing E. Jean Carroll, and there were some rumors that these two had a little bit of a closer relationship that we didn't know too much about. Well, turns out that's true. Why? Because Roberta Kaplan and her spokespeople admitted that they did work together at a law firm back in the early 90s. And so, yes, both of their last names are Kaplan, so we refer to them here as Kaplan and Kaplan. Kind of sounds like a law firm, but that's not the name of the law firm that they worked at together when they worked there together. But they are not related, and there are questions about their connection given the fact that they were in the trial together. The judge was on the bench. Roberta Kaplan was there representing E. Jean. Did they recognize each other? Do they have no relationship at all? Did they have a close mentor-like relationship? Who knows? But we didn't know about it until very recently after the verdict was rendered in the amount of $83 million against Trump. So Alina Habba, Trump's defense attorney, sent a letter in inquiring about a lot of this. Ultimately, she has dropped the issue because Roberta denied it. And the question is, what is Alina going to do? Was she going to get some evidence about this? They're denying it. Might be the end of the road. But let's see what she claimed, because we're learning some new things. In fact, this judge had a pretty close relationship, so close that apparently he officiated someone else's wedding. Here's the story. Alina Habba sent this in from her law firm, Habba, Maddow, to the Honorable Lewis Kaplan, federal judge, Southern District of New York. She says, "Dear Judge Kaplan." Now, this letter is submitted on behalf of President Donald Trump. Judge Kaplan hates that. When she said that in court, he said, "It's Donald Trump." So he's like probably scribbling that president word out. Now, as a result of the story published in the New York Post, defense counsel learned for the first time of allegations that Your Honor, Judge Kaplan, while a partner at the Paul Weiss firm, apparently had a mentor type of relationship with Roberta Kaplan. Roberta Kaplan, of course, is plaintiff's lead counsel. Now, the story is the same story that we read on the show yesterday. Trump to use a judge's conflict in his appeal. This is Exhibit A, just to refresh our memory. This is what she sent into the judge, saying that, yeah, this was written by Charles Gasparino, actual journalism over there from the New York Post, published January 28th, says, yeah, there was a previously unknown conflict of interest. The Post has learned. They did the investigation. Roberta is going to say that she doesn't trust this and that this is all fake in her response. Who knows if it's even real? But the New York Post has been actually accurate. The Washington Post has been not. The New York Post, remember, broke the Hunter story. They actually do some digging and they get banned for it. So they have learned this. Now, Trump lawyer Alina said she was unaware that Lewis Kaplan and Roberta Kaplan, these two, worked together in the early 90s at the same powerhouse white shoe law firm until Saturday, when asked about it by Charles Gasparino. And Gasparino, the author, was told by a source, who is this person, that the judge was once Roberta Kaplan's mentor. Wild. So he mentored her and now she's appearing in his court? That's pretty shocking. Charles Gasparino has a source. He reaches out to Alina for comment and boom, there it is. Now, it was never disclosed, Habba said. It's a conflict of interest. It's a violation of judge ethical rules. And he did some more digging. Roberta Kaplan worked at Paul Weiss Rifkin Wharton and Garrison, Midtown, 1992 to 2016. Then she left, started her own firm. Now, during her early years, she worked as an associate at the firm at the same time as Kaplan, who was there until he got appointed by Bill Clinton. Zach Sawyer, someone for Roberta Kaplan, said that there is no conflict. Says they overlapped for less than 2 years at the early 90s at a large law firm. He was a senior partner. She was a junior associate. She never worked for him. But a former Paul Weiss partner, okay, this is a former partner according to this journalist, who asked not to be named, said like all associates at the firm, Roberta Kaplan did her best to distinguish herself before her partners, including Lewis Kaplan. Says Lou was like her mentor. The judge was like her mentor. That is the claim from the former law partner. Now, messages that were left with Judge Kaplan's chambers and reps for Paul Weiss were not returned on Saturday. Trump was ordered to pay $83 million, calling this woman a whack job. Now, of course, this is the subject of the complaint. So Alina comes back. She says, Your Honor, that's the article. That's what we heard about you. And so we've got questions. Now, if Your Honor truly worked with Miss Kaplan in any capacity, especially if there was a mentor or mentee relationship, that fact should have been disclosed before any case involving these parties was permitted to proceed forward. We've already had 2 trials on this. Now, this issue is particularly concerning since plaintiff's other lead counsel, Sean Crowley, the other woman who we're going to see in a minute, she served as Your Honor's law clerk. Okay, so we have a prospective mentor-mentee relationship. They at least work together. And we have witnesses that say he was her mentor. And we also have understanding that he officiated the law clerk's wedding, who was there as co-counsel. We were previously advised Your Honor co-officiated her wedding. Now, the law says that any judge of the United states shall disqualify himself in any proceeding in which the impartiality might reasonably be questioned. The Code of Conduct for Judges says a judge shall disqualify himself in a proceeding where their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. I don't know, would you reasonably question this dude, this judge? He apparently, allegedly had a mentor relationship with his plaintiff and also co-officiated the co-counsel's wedding when she was his law clerk, which is a very close relationship for a long time. So Sean apparently worked with him for a while such that he co-officiated. Very serious relationship. So I would say, yeah, I kind of would prefer a different judge on that, including instances where the judge served as a lawyer in the matter in controversy, or a lawyer, right? This is the judge's rules. A lawyer with whom the judge previously practiced law, served during such association as a lawyer concerning the matter. Previously practiced law is back on the panel. Okay, so in other words, Roberta Kaplan, who you work together with, is back. Now, Alina says, while not every mere friendship between a judge and a lawyer warrants disclosure and possible recusal by a judge, as the Fifth Circuit recently explained, recusal and disqualification issues based on possible bias or prejudice do require a highly fact-intensive inquiry. Citing some law says, we evaluate whether a judge is impartiality on an objective basis, so that what matters is not the reality of bias or the prejudice, but its appearance. It's not, are you actually biased? Is there an appearance of bias? Zooming out, what would a reasonable observer say? If there is an appearance of impropriety, that's enough. So they go through here with some more case law, saying in the making of this analysis, how do we decide? We ask this. So the distinction between objective and subjective, we're asking a reasonable person, is this relationship appropriate? We're not asking Roberta, was your relationship appropriate? We're not asking Judge Kaplan, was your relationship appropriate? They're going to have a subjective interpretation of this. We're not, okay, we don't care what you think. Objectively, here are the factors that we consider. Whether a reasonable person like you or I, knowing all the facts, would conclude that the trial judge's impartiality could reasonably be questioned. Yeah. If he was the lawyers, okay, E. Jean had two lawyers. If he was one of her lawyers, wedding officiators, I'd have some questions about that. If maybe not enough, but I'd have some questions. But then when you say, okay, they also work together, we've got witnesses who say that they were mentors, he was her mentor. Okay, that's enough. Like, too much for me, okay? Both lawyers? Are you serious? And one of them was your law clerk? We need a new judge. So could reasonably be questioned. An appearance of impropriety occurs when reasonable minds, with knowledge of all the relevant circumstances, disclosed by a reasonable inquiry, would conclude that the judge's honesty, integrity, impartiality, that one for sure, temperament for sure, I mean, we saw his temperament in court, or fitness to serve as a judge is impaired. In close cases, the balance, even if it's questionable, in close cases, this is case law from the Second Circuit, the balance tips in favor of recusal. If it's like questionable, you got to flip it over, man. That's why our justice system is supposed to have a semblance of, credibility. It doesn't anymore, but it was like not that long ago, even, I don't know, 3 years ago, it was more credible. Yeah, before January 6th. And, a lot of other things have happened since then, like 4 indictments and so on. Ballot removals, assault claims, all the things. If it's questionable, you tip in the favor of credibility. We got a lot of judges. Just pick a different judge. It's not that complicated. Here's a whole building. There's a whole building full of them. They're like all over the place. Just go grab one. Put it on a different calendar. Why do you have to keep it in the same court? Well, we know why. So here, without knowing more information, this is Alina Habba, and she's kind of caught here. It's like, what's she going to even ask for? New trial, I guess. Here, without knowing more information or having a specific factual denial by you, judge, that you had a mentor-mentee relationship with Roberta, we're unable to flesh out our position about what specific relief should even be requested. Like, well, I don't even know what we want here. Including, but not limited to, moving for new trials on both issues of liability, trial 1, and damages, trial 2. Saying, surely, however, this court should provide defense counsel with all the relevant facts. At a minimum, this information could certainly prove relevant to Trump's forthcoming motion under Rule 59. We thank the court for its prompt attention to this troubling matter, signed Alina Habba. And so obviously I would agree that there is a ton of smoke here. The question is, what evidence can she get when there is a blanket denial from the other side? And what's she going to do about it? The judge is just, the judge. He's probably going to sanction her, maybe throw her in jail for this, as he threatened last time. So that is the article now that she shared as well, saying, Judge, this is our obligation. And remember, Alina's got an obligation to her client to investigate this stuff, especially if these three have been palling around, frolicking in New York together. Now, here is Roberta Kaplan's response. She says this is all ridiculous, signed by Roberta Kaplan. E. Jean Carroll's lawyer writes in response, Your Honor, we write in response to Alina's letter, but that contained false allegations of a mentor relationship between you and me, Your Honor. It's more than 30 years ago, which is funny. It's funny. Isn't that funny? It's like, how dare you accuse us of something more than 30 30 years ago. We're like, what trial are we in right now? There's no evidence that me and Judge Kaplan ever Bergdorfed in a law firm somewhere. We never had any, interactions in a conference room. There's no evidence of this. It's 30 years ago. We say, yeah, that's what this whole trial's been about. No evidence from 30 years ago. Sheesh. Dating back to a brief period in which we overlapped at Paul Weiss more than 30 years ago. As Miss Habba well knows, these allegations are utterly baseless. Yeah, just like E. Jean Carroll's claims. Now, here are the facts. Paul Weiss is a large law firm, just like Bergdorf's is a large dressing room, and New York's a big city. Several cities in United States and abroad, in its litigation department, which was founded by someone, has been prominent. Great. After graduating from Columbia, I clerked for this guy, moved back to New York, worked as a junior litigation associate in 1992. Nice bio. At the time I started working, Your Honor, Judge Kaplan was a senior litigation partner at the firm. You left when you got appointed. Now, as a result, the length of our overlap at the firm was less than 2 years, which is a lot of time. Now, during that relatively brief period, more than 30 years ago, again, it's like, yeah, long time ago, I do remember the Paul Weiss partners with whom I worked, and none of them was Your Honor. More specifically, I have no recollection from the time period of ever interacting with Your Honor on a case, participating with Your Honor in a client or case-related meeting, or attending court proceeding with Your Honor. Take her word for it. In fact, I remember no direct interaction from that time period with Your Honor at all. This is hardly surprising since at that time I was very junior associate at the large New York law firm, and Your Honor was one of the leaders in the litigation department. And as Your Honor well knows, our substantive interactions over the last 3 decades have been limited to your courtroom in the 2 cases filed by our client here and Trump. Now, needless to say, at no point have we ever had a mentor type relationship, right? So it's a blanket denial. So what's Alina going to do? Now, given the above, there was nothing for Your Honor to disclose. Now, while Habba claims that she learned for the first time of her baseless allegations, the fact that we worked together is a matter of public record. You could see that, read this article, read that article. So kind of calling out Alina, it's like, well, maybe you should have known that, okay? Because there's articles about this that were published later. Now, a particular concern, however, is where and when the New York Post supposedly got this information in the first place. Now, in that regard, it's telling that the article only appeared after Habba's own statement to the media last week when she learned about this. So she's saying, Roberta says, Alina said the statement first, then the article came second. And while both the New York Post and Habba purport to cite the recollections of an unnamed partner, if he even exists, he clearly has a very flawed memory about the events that occurred 3 decades ago. There's a lot of flawed memories in this case, aren't there? A lot of flawed memories. People can't remember anything from like 30 years ago. They just kind of pick years. They can't remember dresses. They can't remember a lot of things. But that, of course, is not the point. From the very start of this recently concluded trial, Trump and Habba pushed a false narrative. Now they're moving on to the post-verdict phase. Litigants cannot be permitted to make claims like this. A lot of case law being copied and pasted here. And says, a jury of Trump's peers have now twice found him liable. My gosh. In the second one, he couldn't even defend himself, by the way, for the assault because it was issue preclusion. He just collateral estoppel brought it all over. So there's no basis to set either verdict aside. Now, Roberta says, while Miss Habba ends her letter by characterizing this as a, quote, troubling matter, what is actually troubling is that the timing of this, and while we wanted to submit our response as soon as possible, we reserve all rights to seek sanctions against Alina Habba, signed by Roberta Kaplan. So then Alina says, okay, you know what? You refute all of this. She's got no evidence to the contrary, I'm sure. So here is what she says in response. She's dropping it. She says, on January 30th, Alina sends this one back to Roberta, says, I write in response to Roberta's letter. Now, in her letter, Miss Kaplan mischaracterized the substance of my letter that was submitted on behalf of Trump. She's making inflammatory and unwarranted accusations against me. Now, contrary to her contention, there are no false allegations of a mentor relationship in my letter. The purpose of the letter was simply to inquire as to whether there was any merit to the recently published article that does report on the existence of an alleged relationship. Now, to be clear, this claim originated solely from the New York Post, where it was purportedly sourced from a former Paul Weiss partner who asked not to be named. I played no part in uncovering this information, never communicated with a Paul Weiss partner, have no personal knowledge as to whether the information contained in the article is true or false. As I stated in my earlier letter, I learned for the first time about the purported relationship, and although I'm quoted in the article, my statements were given in response to their request for a comment, which was also sought from your firm, Roberta. Now, the point of my January 29th letter was to verify whether the information contained in the article is accurate. And since Miss Kaplan has now denied that there was ever a mentor-mentee relationship between you and Your Honor, this issue has seemingly resolved. We thank the court for the attention to this matter. Respectfully submitted by Alina Habba. Says there are, however, she puts in a footnote, various other issues relating to this court's conduct, including potential bias, hostility towards the defense, that will be raised in post-trial motions and on appeal. So Alina's saying we're not done yet. And I don't know where else she could really go with this. I mean, if the judge denies it and Roberta denies it, think about back in the early 90s, there was no Facebook or X accounts. So we couldn't scroll through someone's LinkedIn to see if they were posting, victory parties when they were out together and hanging out. Now, we talk a lot about bad memories, and a lot of people have bad memories. Maybe Miss Kaplan's memories, not as good as it was. Who knows? But it looks like Trump and their defense is going to drop that. Now, that doesn't mean that this case is not as bizarre as it comes and as rigged as you would expect by the Democrats who have concocted this whole prosecution by creating the law, extending the statute of limitations by E. Jean Carroll's and Roberta's own admissions. They changed the rules. Then it was all funded by Reid Hoffman in a jurisdiction that is very adverse to Donald Trump. And they got the result they wanted. And they're celebrating like, I don't know, children, honestly. It's pretty pathetic. Here is what E. Jean Carroll sounded like when she was on Rachel Maddow. This one clipped over from our friend Steve Krakauer. Here's what it sounded like. Roberta Kaplan, the other lawyer who was the law clerk to Judge Kaplan, who had her wedding apparently officiated by the judge, is there along with Miss Carroll in the middle. And watch how uncomfortable this whole thing is.
About using some of Trump's money you're about to get to help shore up women's rights. Do you know what that might be, what that might look like?
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
Tell me.
I had such great ideas for all the good I'm going to do with this money. First thing, Rachel, you and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes, new shoes, motorcycle for Crowley, new fishing rod for Robbie. Rachel, what do you want? Penthouse? It's yours,
Nothing.
Rachel. Penthouse and France? You want France? You want to go fishing in France? No? Oh, all right, okay.
That's a joke.
You hear her attorney? That's a joke. They're all pretty uncomfortable. And if you watch even Roberta Kaplan, right, she's kind of looking down right there, like, oh my gosh, like licking her lips there, just one after the other. Does that look like a woman who is recovering from trauma, who's recovering from a really horrific ordeal? They're going to go shopping, man. They're going to go shopping, new fishing rods, new boots. Weird. And a judge has ordered her to get $83 million. And even look at Rachel Maddow, right? She's shaking her head, looking up at, she's like, I don't even know what to say to this whack job. Who is this crazy person on my show? She's whacked. All right. So we have a little bit more of these four who are just giddy with glee for ripping off $83 million from somebody who actually built stuff, who actually built businesses in this country, who actually did good things for the city in which they reside. All these buildings that they're building, it takes people to actually develop those. You don't just get to sit in these nice studios and enjoy, but they are mostly people who like to destroy things. They celebrate taking money. If they could get more money out of them, they will, because this is what it's all about.
E. Jean, in terms of what you've just been through, I mean, to hear a lawyer as experienced as Robbie Kaplan say it was nerve-wracking to be in that room sometimes because of the way this was conducted. I have to ask you, President Trump has kept your name out of his mouth since being told he has to pay $83 million to you for what he's done in the past. But over the weekend, he did start posting links online to articles that attacked you and denied your claims. Again, he seems to be pushing it already in terms of whether or not he is going to go back to calling you a liar and denying that he did what he did.
Well, by the way, the jury called her a liar too, right? I don't know why nobody talks about that, but they said that she was not credible on the R charge. They only checked the box for the assault charge, not the R charge. They found her not credible. Some people might say they thought that she was lying for that. That's what I think.
If it came to it, if your lawyers told you that there was another case and that you should go back and get more money out of him and sue him again, would you do it?
Absolutely.
It wasn't too much wear and tear on you? I mean, the guts factor here is real in terms of how much you put yourself out there.
Look at her.
Rachel.
Yeah, it was really traumatic for her, okay? She's doing cartwheels.
Big, strong people wouldn't put themselves through what you've gone through.
Rachel, many people, as you know, have been through much worse than I went through at that trial.
Yes, people who were actual victims of the R.
People suffered more difficult things than I've ever been through in my life. And I am more than willing to do it again because we achieved so much in a 7-day trial. We did what people thought was impossible. We beat Donald Trump.
All right. What a weird exchange between these people. Just salivating over the verdict. And of course, we're going to see what the appeals look like. Alina Habba saying this is not done yet. This will be on appeal. And we might fast forward a couple years from now, right after the election's over, a lot of this stuff will have a lot less energy behind it, a lot less funding and all the stuff. Maybe there'll be a settlement. Maybe there won't be. Maybe there'll be an appeal. Maybe we'll have a recreation of the Stormy Daniels saga where she gets ordered to pay some fees for Donald Trump. We'll see. But there's a long road ahead. Of course, they're satisfied with their rigged outcome. They concocted this whole claim and now they're celebrating. But we'll be here to continue to cover this, my friends. As soon as that appeal drops, we'll unpack the full thing. So make sure you're subscribed wherever it is you're watching this. Don't forget to check out the website, robertgovea.com. Link is down in the description below if you want to read through any of the PDFs that we cover here. Also, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, that's the place to do it. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here on the next one.